Bruno Lees. I'm an English language teacher and teacher trainer working at a university in Bruges in Belgium. And I've also published some course books for language teaching in Belgium. That's kind of who I am.
Thank you.
What are the key subjects that in Belgium schools?
Okay, I think those will be pretty similar to the subjects you have in your country. I mean, maths is a central subject in all schools, and also the native language. Belgium is a bit of a complicated country, as we have three different native languages in three different parts of the country. So where I live, Dutch would be the #1 language, the native language. So Dutch and mathematics are central, but of course it's added upon with foreign languages, English and French, with sciences, physical education and sports, that kind of thing. So I suppose that's pretty similar to what you have in your country.
Hello, sir. My name is Mamata, an 8th grader. I'm an 8th grader from JPH School, Ailavaram. I'm so excited to interact with you. Here, my question is: are there any standardized tests or exams in Belgium schools?
Okay, yeah, I can answer that. There are standardized tests, but it's a fairly new and recent thing. There didn't used to be tests like that, but now we have them at 4 stages. There are 2 moments where they have standardized tests in primary school, and 2 moments where this happens in secondary school. Primary school is 6 years of study here, and they would have those standardized tests after year 4 and in year 6. And the secondary school tests, we also have 6 years of secondary school, and there the standardized tests would be happening in year 2 and year 6, so the final year as well. The standardized tests are only for the 2 core subjects, which are the native language, Dutch, including listening and reading and grammar, and mathematics.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
I am Husnia. I am an 8th grader. Sir, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What kind of professional development opportunities are there for teachers in Belgium?
That's quite an open answer, as there are many different ways of professional development for teachers. First of all, you have different universities that have specific programs for teachers. So they provide sessions, in-service training sessions for teachers here in Belgium. They each have their own programs, and the teachers can choose. As such, there's no compulsory program of professional development, although most head teachers will expect that their teachers will take part in a minimum number of those sessions per year. But there are different providers, and you can actually choose, regardless of where you live, which program you would like to follow, depending on your needs and interests and your specific teaching context.
What is the age of retirement?
Okay, as in many countries, that's currently shifting upwards. People retiring now can retire at 62, but we're moving towards 67 gradually. So, but I'm fine, thank you.
My name is Nitvika. I'm an 8th grader from JPH School, Ailavaram. I'm so lucky to interact with you, sir. Here, I would like to ask you a question. Can I ask, sir?
Yes, of course, fire away.
How does vocational education work in Belgium?
All right. If we look at vocational education, it starts actually in secondary school from the age of 12. Now, at first, the first 2 years are pretty general, where the amount of really practical courses is limited. But from the age of 14 onwards, um, it's getting more specialized, and then you would have to choose, for instance, whether you want to become an electrician or a builder or someone who works in a restaurant kitchen, or someone who does some more social work. And from then onwards, there are also two different routes at the age of 16 where we have the option to go in a kind of part-time learning, part-time working system, where they will come to schools 2 days out of the 5-day week, and the other 3 days they would be in the workplace. That's one option. And the other opportunity is to spend more days in school, and then you have placements in the workplace, depending on what you're studying to become. If you're a car mechanic, you would go to a garage then, for instance. And these two routes basically depend on what students would want to do afterwards. Because if they finish secondary and they do the kind of part-time learning, part-time working route, then after they study, they'll go right into the profession and start working. If they're doing the kind of more school hours and then placements on top of that, that could mean that they would do an additional kind of professional bachelor program afterwards, in a vocational topic then. The right teachers. I don't know about the situation in India, but in Belgium, there is a shortage of teachers on the whole. And particularly people who are vocationally skilled, like a good electrician, will make money by being an electrician rather than being a teacher. And so that sometimes can be a problem. It's not that it's an enormous problem, but it is a matter of finding indeed the skilled teachers and motivating them to become teachers. Now, what you see is with some people as they get older, some of the vocational work gets physically hard, and then teaching could be a nice alternative. Or you have people who do part-time. They still work part-time in their jobs, and then the other part-time would be in education as a teacher. And that's a combination, and that's a positive thing, because then you bring the know-how from the workplace into the classroom, as these people are still working in the field.
Okay, what are the top jobs in Belgium that are paid high than rest of our professions?
I think the best paid jobs will be probably specialized doctors, lawyers, not teachers.
Yes. So, if you want to become a teacher in Belgium, what are the tests that he has to qualify before getting absorbed in teaching profession? Are there any standardized tests?
Um, in order to become a teacher, there are also different possible ways of getting into the profession. Because we were talking about the vocational school teachers who teach the professional skills. A lot of them don't have university degree, so they would have to do kind of additional teachers course, which will be provided by a university. And there they'll get some lessons on children's psychology, on methodology, on class management and things like that. If we think about teachers who teach more traditional subjects like maths or languages, they will generally go to a university, and there are once again two different possibilities. Either they do a kind of integrated course where they straight away choose to become a language or another subject teacher, and then they get an integrated course in which they get the topic classes, but also the methodology classes. Now, for those courses, if you want to start that, there's a kind of entry test. So before you can start those courses at university, you have to take this entry test. The test is compulsory. Even if you don't pass, you can still start, but you might have to take some remedial courses. For instance, if your literacy skills, your spoken and written communication isn't strong enough, if the test shows that, then you would have to take compulsory remedial classes to upgrade your skills.
Thank you, Bruno. In Indian context, if I'm an English teacher, and usually we stress on listening, reading, writing, but we neglect speaking, which is a very important component.
Absolutely.
Most of the students are tested only on writing skills. But in your country, is there any special focus on speaking?
There is more and more. If we look back from the time where I started teaching, also then there was much more focus on reading and writing. But over the years, the focus has really shifted towards oral interaction and speaking activities. And they are now a major part, if not the major part, actually, of what the goals for students are. The, the goals to be reached with students are communicative goals, and being a successful communicator is also being a successful speaker. And there's a lot of focus on oral interaction.
When it comes to textbooks meant for English language teaching in the classroom, are they revised from time to time, or they set for a few years, a 5 years span, and after that there will be a revision, there will be a review of these textbooks? Is there any criteria?
As such, there's no specific criteria, but I think that a kind of lifespan of 5 years for a course book would be also what we generally see here. But it also depends if there are any reforms in the curriculum itself. And we've been having quite a few in the past decade, which means that for some course books, we've seen 3 different versions in a decade because of those reforms. And okay, sometimes it's just a kind of polishing the course book which was there already, and just adapting some bits and pieces here and there. But you could say that indeed in a time span of around 5 years, you get a more comprehensive overhaul of the materials.
Okay.
Hi.
My name is Nandi Kishore. I would like to ask you a question. Can I answer?
Yes, ask me your question.
What schools are popular in Belgium, public or private?
All right. I have to say a few things here about the way education has been organized and is organized in Belgium at the moment. In some countries, you have very expensive private schools, and we've never really had them in Belgium, apart from some international schools, mainly for expats living in Belgium. In Belgium, we've always had a system of religion schools and state schools. Now, the religion schools, the most common religion in Europe is Christianity. So there were Christianity-inspired schools. And traditionally, these were the first education providers, traditionally and historically, in the country, but also in Europe. So all schools originally, if we go back a few hundred years, were confessional schools, were religious schools. That means that still today, the Christian schools have most students in secondary school, and the state schools have a more limited number. But that's more or less linked to the tradition. And what we see is that the so-called religious schools have become less and less religious over the years. They have become more secular, and it's not because it's just Christian school that you would not allow any other religions. So whatever your religion is, people are accepted in those schools. So they prefer to call themselves open dialogue schools, which means everyone's welcome. But the inspiration in origin would still be Christian.
So, are there such incentives or special provisions given to the students that come to the state schools, especially?
Actually, the difference between state schools and Christian schools is not so big. In primary school, in principle, all school materials are free, regardless of what school you're in. School meals are not free. Although at the moment this is a current issue in politics in Belgium, where this is a very hot topic, and actually the government is deciding on new regulations and systems there. So I don't know where it's going to end, but that's one of the things as well. But like course books, even pens or scissors, glue in primary school, that should all be free. And there's a kind of limited amount of school costs per year that can be added on top of that. For instance, for specific school day trips or excursions, where they could ask the parents some money. In secondary school is different. Entrance to education as such is free, but their parents do have to pay for the books. There is, and that started in the COVID pandemic period in 2020. There is now a system where every student will get access to a personal laptop or Chromebook. So that is provided for them in their secondary education, but the course books themselves, they will have to pay for.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to your school timings in Belgium schools, at what time you start and what time you end? So are there any other breaks, and how long your breaks? So we
Okay.
just want to know.
Yeah. There may be some minor differences between schools, but in general, it's more or less like this, that classes will start at 8:30 in the morning, and then they will have 2 periods of 50 minutes, and then there'll be a short 15-minute break. And then they would have 2 more periods, 50 minutes each, and then there's a lunch break, so that's around 12:15, something like that. And that lunch break will normally be another hour, so that's a longer break. In some schools, it may be even longer, and that may depend, for instance, in more urban areas where children would go home for lunch, then they would be needing a little more time. But if everyone stays inside the school, then the lunch breaks would be shorter. And then after that, in the afternoon, starting at around 1:30 p.m., there'll be, depending on which year they're in and also which section they've chosen, there will be 3 or 4 more 50-minute periods. So the end of the school day would be around 4 or at latest 5 p.m. in secondary school. So they have 7 or 8 periods of 50 minutes every day,
Yes,
except on Wednesday. That's only half a day.
To give a message to my students, and you know that these online interactions with the different professionals or teachers or the students, we have been doing almost for the last 7 to 8 years. I have been observing a lot of difference in my students' communicative skills, and they are progressing well. And some students are able to give the speeches in front of the top officials in my region with the confidence that they get from through these interactions. Do you think that these cross cultural interactions are helpful to the students?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are several positive aspects of your concept and your initiative, because you're opening windows to other worlds, which is always interesting. And even if I say that a lot of people in Belgium don't want to live or work elsewhere, still, I think it's important that they are oriented and open to the world out there as well. So it's also something I try to do with my students, is to have an international focus and be aware of much more than what's happening in your own backyard. So that's one element, but it's also through communicating that they will also get better themselves in their communicative skills, both receptively and through repetition and practice, also productively. And it may also give them confidence in the end to do this, because I can imagine that for some of your students, it's quite a challenge to even just ask me a question, someone they've never seen before, a perfect stranger. And I want to congratulate them with the courage they found to do that. And they did it very respectfully as well.
Thank you so